at the root of so many long-term health conditions. But what's exciting is that science is showing us that food can be one of the most powerful tools for repair. So food really is medicine, or can be medicine. Our first speaker is a leading gut microbiome scientist and research advisor who specialises in the intersection of diet, the gut and health. She's conducted groundbreaking nutritional intervention studies in both India and the UK, investigating how food shapes the gut microbiome and in turn influences inflammation, mood and well-being. Recognised with the Best Research Award and Best Achievement Award from the University of Nottingham, she's passionate about turning cutting-edge science into practical strategies we can all use. Her talk, Eat to Beat Inflammation, Gut Smart Foods and Speak to Your Immune System, will explore the latest findings on fermented foods, prebiotic fibre and omega-3s, and how these can work together to reduce inflammation and support your long-term health. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Amrita Vijay.
How are we all? Good, brilliant. Okay, so as Catherine mentioned, today we'll be talking to you guys about the hot topic, inflammation, and just simple foods that, as part of my research, that I've come across that actually can help beat inflammation. So, just to start with, to get you guys a bit startled, 85% of the people in the UK have experienced gastrointestinal symptoms just in the last 1 year alone. So who's shocked by this? Hands up. It's huge, isn't it? So yeah, I was quite startled myself when I looked at this, and so it obviously brings to light the importance of gut health. The issues concerning gut health is not a niche concern. It's something that's emerging. It's something that's in the forefront, especially with statistics like this. I mean, almost 9 out of 10 people in the UK have actually experienced some sort of gastrointestinal symptom in the last 1 year. So that brings me to the topic of what is actually gut health. Any ideas? Any thoughts? Because we keep coming across it, we keep coming across the term gut health, but what is gut health? So I can help break that down for you a bit. So gut health actually starts with the gut microbiome. Okay, so the gut microbiome is a collective name of a range of microorganisms that reside within our gut. So when we talk about microorganisms, it's bacteria, fungi, viruses, all of them living together in an ecosystem residing in our gut. Okay? And when we talk about the gut microbiome, we often relate the microbiome to digestion. Okay, so how well are you digesting? Are you able to digest foods? How well are you able to absorb nutrients? But actually it expands beyond that. Okay, so it's not just the digestion of foods, it's not just the absorption of nutrients, it's actually helping to maintain an immune system. It helps protect your body from pathogens. It also is really important for the way you feel, so the way your mood is, your mental health as well. Okay? And I really love this analogy when I talk about gut health. Okay? So when you have a healthy gut, for example, you can always relate that to an ecosystem. Okay, so a rainforest that's thriving. So you've got a range of trees, a range of plants, a range of animals, all living together, cohabiting, living in an ecosystem, helping each other out to help maintain an ecosystem that's balanced and is resilient. Okay? So when you think of a healthy gut, that's what you can relate to. You can relate to all these microorganisms living together. So you've got the good as well as the bad bacteria. You've got the pathogens as well as the ones that are not pathogenic, all of them living together. But they're all living in harmony with each other because it's all under balance, it's all under control. Okay? So this is where you've got a well-balanced ecosystem of both the good as well as the bad bacteria. So when you have a healthy and thriving gut, you obviously have a great immune system, you're mentally well, you have good mental health, you are able to manage stress levels a lot better, you're able to sleep a lot better, And what we really have to remember is that diet is the number one factor that modulates your gut microbiome. So diet is the number one trigger that can actually shift this balance. So just talking about diet, I'm sure you guys must have come across the biotics, okay? So few in the room have come across the term prebiotics. Hands up. Brilliant. Probiotics, great. Symbiotics, not bad. Postbiotics, no one. Okay. So just to let you know, so all of these terms are just coined from daily nutrients and specific food components that are naturally present in food. Okay, so we as scientists like complicating things. We don't like keeping things simple. So we just give things terms to make it sound really complicated. But at the end of the day, they're just all present in our daily foods that we come across. So prebiotics are, of course, I go into detail in the next few slides, but prebiotics are, of course, the fibres that are present in a range of fruits and vegetables. Probiotics are the live beneficial bacteria that you normally find in fermented foods, for example. Now, the term symbiotics is actually the combination of a prebiotic and a probiotic together, okay? And postbiotics is something that you guys have not come across, and I don't blame you because it's something that's been very, very recently it's been coined very recently. So postbiotics is actually the compounds that bacteria produce in food, okay? So when you think about sourdough bread, for example, you might just think that the sourdough process, obviously it's live fermentation, you get the dough, you ferment it, and you put it in the oven, and the moment you put it in the oven, you think you're killing off the bacteria, and that's true, you kill off all the live bacteria, but the compounds that the bacteria produce, which are really beneficial for us, are still present in that loaf of bread. Okay, so those are your postbiotics. So the next foundation of gut health is, of course, lifestyle. So lifestyle, when I talk about lifestyle, I specifically talk about medications. Of course, we've come across antibiotics that are really detrimental for gut health. You've got stress and sleep quality, which also have detrimental effects on your microbiome. So if you're chronically stressed and you don't sleep very well, that does have knock-on effects on your gut health. Exercise and physical activity. So how well do you exercise? How active are you? Also has an impact on your gut health as well. And you've got environmental exposures. So environmental exposures, what I mean by that is, for example, where you live. You live in the countryside compared to you live in the city. You actually do have differences in the composition of your microbiome even then. If you've got pets, you haven't got pets, you do have differences there as well. So you've got environmental exposures that actually help shape the composition of your microbiome as well. Now, the opposite of a thriving ecosystem is one that looks like that. So when you think about gut health that's not that healthy, you can relate that to a rainforest that's undergone deforestation. Okay, so you've got some of the main trees that have been sort of cut down. You've got the loss of species, for example, and that really weakens the whole ecosystem. Okay, so a weakened ecosystem or a weakened gut, or the diversity of the gut actually makes a person more vulnerable to things like infections, inflammation, and all of the diseases that are associated with these conditions as well. So there you go. So there you've got an imbalance of more of the bad bugs and less of the good bugs. The next fun fact is 70% of your immune system actually lives in your gut. Okay? So when I talk about the immune system, there is something called as the gut immune axis as well. So you must have come across the gut-brain axis. There's a lot of talk about that, but there's also the gut immune axis. So how does the gut immune axis actually work? So you've got the gut microbiota, so the various, the species of bacteria that's present in your gut. The two ways by which they communicate with your immune system. So it makes it a lot easier for them because 70% of your immune system actually resides in the gut, right? So your gut microbiota, a specific species of bacteria, can directly communicate with your immune cells. Okay, so they actually have a communication system that's set up already. The other way that they can communicate with your immune system is actually by producing these special compounds. So when I talked about postbiotics, they're actually the compounds that these bacteria produce. And these compounds, when actually produced inside of your gut, can directly communicate with your immune system as well. Okay? So these are the two ways by which the gut bacteria can communicate with the immune system, and they have immense control over your immune system. Okay. And when I talk about the immune system and the gut, I love talking about or using the analogy of a gut fortress. Okay. So when you think about the gut fortress, or when you just think about a fortress, you look at it and you say, oh, it's got really strong walls that protect everything that's inside of it. Okay, so you've got enemies on the other side waiting to attack, but they're not able to because of the strong wall that's protecting everything that's on the inside from the outside. Okay, and you've also got soldiers on the inside constantly being on alert, trying to make sure that no one's trying to come through. Okay, they're constantly alert. They're not shift workers, they're working 24/7, 7 days a week. Okay? So this is your first line of barrier. Okay, it's really strong, it's a really strong structure, so the enemies are not able to go through. But what happens when you begin to have cracks and holes in that gut fortress? So the soldiers on the other side are constantly working, right? So what if there's a food shortage and they haven't been fed very well? So they slacken a bit. Okay, and that's when the enemies realize, aha, this is the best time for me to attack. So they attack, they create the cracks, they create holes in those walls, they enter through that fortress, and then they begin to set the whole thing on fire. Okay, so that fire is actually inflammation. Okay, so when you kind of translate this into what happens in your gut, like you can see there, your gut actually has a gut lining, which is the first line of defense. So it's actually the fortress, the wall of the fortress. Now you've got the bacteria that's just on the inside protecting that wall, so constantly being on alert and making sure that you don't have any unwanted invaders entering through that gut wall. But the minute you begin to starve it, or the minute you don't feed it the food that it needs, it begins to slacken. And that's when the enemies on the outside realize that, aha, this is a great way for me to get through, and they begin to attack the gut lining, creating these holes, creating these cracks, and then they enter. As soon as they enter the gut wall, they're inside the gut, the lumen of the gut, and as soon as they're inside the lumen of the gut, of course, you've got 70% of your immune system in there, your immune system is alerted, the red light goes off, and that's it, it's fight or flight since then. So you have this fire that's created, okay? And then the fire that's created is something that it's quite small when it starts, and you might not even realize that there's something on with your gut, but over time, you might realize, oh, I do feel a bit off, and those things might manifest in the form of bloating, for example, or abdominal pains, cramps, and then you realize that, oh, I can't really tolerate certain foods. These are the subtle symptoms that come about when you think that your gut lining's been compromised. But over time, when you don't actually listen to your symptoms and you carry on, you'll be like, oh, that's fine, it's just the usual stuff. But that fire that starts within your gut can actually spread. Okay, so the fire that starts within the little fortress can actually burn the whole kingdom down. Okay, so when the gut fortress walls stay weak, the battle never ends. The fire of inflammation keeps burning. And what I mean the fire of inflammation keeps burning is that it's not just localized to the gut, but it can spread to different tissues and organs in your body. And that's what's termed as chronic inflammation. So it's the slow burning, hidden, but steadily causing damage. The fire that causes steady damage across different parts, different organs in your body. So heart conditions, for example, arthritis, again, an inflammatory condition. IBS, of course, type 2 diabetes, mental health, allergies, respiratory diseases, the asthma, all of them actually, one of the main underlying causes of all of this is actually chronic inflammation. And this again is quite a shocking stat. So 70% of all deaths globally are due to non-communicable chronic diseases. So at the moment, in this day and age, we're actually fighting a massive epidemic, and that's communicable, non-communicable diseases that's caused by chronic inflammation. And here we have diet as a lever. So diet is the most consistent daily input that shapes our gut microbiota. Okay, so it actually helps rebuild the gut lining. So remember, if you feed those little soldiers the food that they need, they're going to be happy. They are going to be stood there protecting your gut lining like real good soldiers. Of course, and then it's got knock-on effects, because then that helps calm the immune system because everything's back into order. It helps restore the balance in the microbe community as well. So now coming to 3 gut-smart foods that speak to your immune system. So going back to these biotics, prebiotics. So like I mentioned, prebiotics are dietary fibers, but they also are plant compounds. So the color that you see in fruits and vegetables, so they're termed as polyphenols. So anything that's colored, so you've got blackberries, blueberries, peppers, anything that's colored also act as prebiotics, but because they also feed your gut microbes as well. So it's not just the dietary fiber, but it's also the colorful compounds in plants and fruits and vegetables that feed your beneficial gut bugs. Now, an example of a commonly used dietary fiber is inulin fiber. So this inulin fiber is commonly used in scientific research because it's highly versatile. Okay, so inulin fiber is commonly found in things like leeks, onions, garlic, bananas as well, and I've used this myself in one of my research studies because it's really versatile, it's quite easy for people to consume, and I'll go into the results in a minute. And then coming to probiotics, and like I mentioned, probiotics are the live beneficial gut bacteria that support digestion, immunity, and overall gut health. Okay, so examples of these, I'm sure you guys must have come across these ones: lactobacilli, bifidobacteria. And they're normally commonly found in things like yogurts, kefir, sauerkraut, but also commonly found in specific probiotic supplements as well. And then finally, the symbiotic, which is a combination of prebiotics and probiotics. So it's a synergy of the dietary fiber as well as the live microbes that's present in food. And a common example of this is fermented foods. So when I talk about fermented foods, it's actually not just talking about yogurt or kefir, but it's actually a combination. So things like kimchi, sauerkraut, which has got the fiber from the cabbage, as well as the beneficial live microbes from the live fermentation. Okay, so that's a great example of a symbiotic. So what I did as part of my research was to see if any of these 3, so I looked at symbiotic, I looked at a fiber alone, which is inulin fiber, and I compared that to omega-3s. And I'm sure you guys have come across omega-3 to be a really potent anti-inflammatory molecule, right? So what I wanted to do was to do a comparative study to see who wins, okay? So I conducted a study looking at the anti-inflammatory edge between these three different types of foods. So I used Chuckling Goat's prebiotic and probiotic. So the prebiotic in Chuckling Goat's the company that I'm lead scientific advisor for, and the prebiotic mix was the complete prebiotic blend that they offer. So the prebiotic blend contains 18 different plant fibers, all packed into one powder, and the probiotic was the original kefir. Okay, and I used that as a combination to make up the symbiotic. Okay, so people were asked to take this together. So take the kefir mixed in with the prebiotic fiber to give them the effect of a symbiotic. And I compared that to omega-3 and also inulin fiber. So the inulin fiber was the prebiotic. And what did I find? Not very surprising. So the synbiotic had the most widest and broadest effects in bringing down inflammation compared to inulin, fibre, and omega-3. So the synbiotic stood first, second in line was inulin, and third was omega-3. Okay? So the synbiotic combination actually delivered the broadest and the most powerful anti-inflammatory effects than inulin, fibre, or omega-3 alone. So this got me thinking about diversity again. Okay, so when we talk about supplements, so when we talk about single source supplements, for example, the inulin, when we talk about inulin, we're just talking about one type of dietary fibre, and that restricts the diversity in terms of benefits that you can get. Okay, or even if you think about omega-3, it's just one type of molecule that has been shown to be powerful. But when you compare that to a synbiotic, which has a range of different fibers, a range of different probiotic bacteria in it, the effects are not comparable. Okay? So, like I mentioned, the probiotic kefir was naturally fermented using live kefir grains, and it has about greater than 50 live strains of bacteria in it. The complete prebiotic that I used had 18 different prebiotic fibers, all from natural sources. And then you can actually compare that to consuming fermented foods on a daily basis. Okay? But the scope of the study was to do a clinical trial, and if you wanted to get the same effect, you probably have to consume 6 to 8 different servings of fermented foods a day. Okay, that's quite a lot. But the concept is that diversity is key. So the winner, of course, was synbiotics, which is the ultimate anti-inflammatory duo. Okay, and again, I'd like to get you guys back to thinking about your gut as a microbe garden. Okay, so your probiotics are like the seeds that you introduce, the beneficial species that you introduce into your gut. Your prebiotics are the fertilizers or the compost that feed the newly planted seeds, helping them grow. But your synbiotics actually help combine the two, okay? So you plant the beneficial species or the seeds, and you give them the fertilizer they need to thrive straight away. So it's basically a complete care kit. So you're providing the seeds, you're providing the compost, the fuel that they need to thrive together. So that's your synbiotics, okay? So that's probably why we did see these massive effects in bringing down inflammation, because it's not just taking a probiotic, but you're really not sure whether it's actually going to go through and actually, reside in your gut. Is it actually going to go through your gastric your gastric environment? Not sure. But the minute you're able to provide that with the fiber, with the fuel that it needs, there are more chances of it surviving and actually embedding itself within the gut. And that's me. I hope that was useful, and I'm happy to answer any questions or any thoughts, comments.
How were you testing the inflammation going down? Is it like a blood test or is it based on symptoms?
Yeah, so what we did was a clinical trial. So I had healthy volunteers who came in for a blood test. We also collected a stool sample as well. Well, I'm currently analysing the stool samples. But yeah, we collected blood samples at fasting. They went away for 6 weeks. So the actual intervention was 6 weeks. They came back after 6 weeks, and we collected bloods and stools again from them. So it was actually comparing both before and after the intervention. Yeah.
Would you recommend using a combination so the omega-3 can still be used and the amount of omega-3 that you have there isn't necessarily, I've heard recommendations of a lot higher dose to have an anti-inflammatory effect. So just intrigued to know how you chose the omega-3, whether you would still suggest including that.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with including omega-3s. I think if you do want to include omega-3s and it's something that you've been taking, absolutely no harm, because at the end of the day it does have anti-inflammatory effects. But yeah, with regards to dosage, the doses that I used was quite moderate. I used 500 milligrams of omega-3, and I did see decreases in inflammatory markers, but maybe if I did go up to 1,000, I would have seen more drastic impacts on reducing inflammation. But yeah, the recommended dosage for inflammation is between 500 to to 1,000. And again, it depends on the conditions you've got as well. So if you're looking at bone health, for example, you might need to sort of optimize that based on the recommended dosage for that. But generally, if you're quite healthy and you are taking omega-3s, I mean, there's no need for you to take really high doses of omega-3s. If you're balancing that with a good diet, you know, you're absolutely fine. Yeah.